We're going to talk about chapter 5, the wine shop. So chapter 5, the wine shop, starts, I think, with one of my favorite scenes. And not just, maybe not the whole book, but definitely in this first book, Recalled to Life. I love the scene. This book, she's the one who taught me this book for the first time, and I fell in love with it. Also, one thing about this in this scene, when the wine barrel breaks on the path, and all of the poor people in this town gather around it and begin to drink the wine. And then they dip their handkerchiefs in, and they drain it into their mouths. They're starving. They're very, very hungry. And then they even get the wooden pieces of the barrel, and they start chewing on it just to show how poor these people are. It was good, the worst of times for these people. So Tale of Two Cities is historical fiction, and it captures very well the starvation, the hunger of the time that would lead to the rage and the rebellion. So very, very good writing. And then it's also there. I think someone got the wine and then wrote the word blood on the wall, and it was prophetic that eventually the streets would be running with red liquid also, but it's not gonna be wine. It's gonna be blood. So very good foreshadowing also on Dickens' part. And then we're brought to the if you don't remember that part, again, weeks have passed since you've read it. I really recommend you read it again. It's maybe just 3 pages, but oh man, Dickens at his best this part. The first part of the wine shop. So you can pause this video and reread it again, because maybe you're kind of like, hello, I don't remember that lagi, and I don't remember it being so well written. Pause the video, reread it. It's very, very good writing. And then we were shown a wine shop which is owned by a character named Defarge, who we hired perfect Tom Hardy. I can't imagine anyone else for Defarge as the owner of the wine shop. So he's a very brawny, very calm, level-headed man. There is a strength and an intensity to him. He's the owner of the wine shop. And then we have Madame Defarge also, who is also very calm, but she's scary. Her intensity reaches a point where she is almost frightening. All right? And this is where Laurie and Lucy, they come to this wine shop. So Defarge knows about this recalled to life. He knows about he is involved in this situation of Laurie and Lucy coming to France to find her father. He doesn't know everything, but he is kind of involved in the dealings with it. And then Madame Defarge, as his wife, is there also. Okay, so I don't know where you stopped exactly. However, I'll just read it. I wanna read through it. It's a good review for you guys said, okay? The wine shop was a corner shop, better than most others in its appearance and degree, and the master of the wine shop had stood outside it in a yellow waistcoat and green breeches, looking on at the struggle for the lost wine. It's not my affair, said he, with a final shrug of his shoulders. The people from the market did it, let them bring another. Then his eyes happening to catch the tall joker writing up his joke, he called to him across the way. Say then, my Gaspard, what do you do there? Gaspard is the one who wrote blood on the wall, and we will have an actor for Gaspard, not in this PowerPoint, in the future na lang, or we'll find a way. I didn't put the Gaspard yet, but Gaspard wrote the word blood on the wall. The fellow pointed to his joke with immense significance, as is often the way with his tribe. It missed its mark and completely failed, as is often the way with his tribe, too. What now? Are you a subject for the mad hospital? Said the wine shopkeeper, crossing the road and obliterating the bridge with a handful of mud, picked up for the purpose. You write in the public streets. Is there, tell me thou, is there no other place to write such words in? In his expostulation, he dropped his cleaner hand, perhaps accidentally, perhaps not, upon the Joker's heart. Joker rapped it with his own, took a nimble spring upward, and came down in a fantastic dancing attitude, with one of his stained shoes jerked off his foot into his hand and held out. A Joker of an extremely, not to say wolfishly, practical character, he looked under those circumstances. Put it on, said the other. Call wine, wine, and finish there. With that advice, he wiped his soiled hand upon the Joker's dress, such as it was, quite deliberately, as having dirtied the hand on his account, and then recrossed the road and entered the wine shop. This wine shop keeper, so pause for a while. So, see, Defarge he said, why are you writing this in a public place? He kind of didn't like that Gaspard wrote the word blood on the wall because it's so public. He said, don't write those things in public. Are there not more private places to write these words in? And then he covered up the word blood, and then he kind of touched Gaspard's heart. Okay, he said, don't write it in public, write it in more private places. And then he touched the chest of Gaspard. So there's kind of there's secrecy. There is secrecy involved here. Defarge doesn't want the call of blood to be public. He wants it to be private, in the heart of his fellow men, as opposed to advertised across the streets. Okay? The wine shop keeper was a bull-necked, martial-looking man of 30, and he should have been of a hot temperament, for, although it was a bitter day, he wore no coat, but carried one slung over his shoulder. His shirt sleeves were rolled up too, and his brown arms were bare to the elbows. Neither did he wear anything more on his head than his own crisply curling, short, dark hair. He was a dark man altogether, with good eyes and a good bold breadth between them. Good-humored looking on the whole, but implacable looking too. Evidently a man of a strong resolution and a set purpose. A man not desirable to be met, rushing down a narrow pass with a gulf on either side, for nothing would turn the man. Madame Defarge, his wife, sat in the shop behind the counter as he came in. Madame Defarge was a stout woman of about his own age, with a watchful eye that seldom seemed to look at anything, a large hand heavily ringed, a steady face, strong features, and great composure of manner. There was a character about Madame Defarge from which one might have predicted that she did not often make mistakes against herself in any of the reckonings over which she presided. Madame Defarge, being sensitive to cold, was wrapped in fur, and had a quantity of bright shawl twined about her head, though not the concealment of her large earrings. Her knitting was before her, but she had laid it down to pick her teeth with a toothpick. Thus engaged with her right elbow supported by her left hand, Madame Defarge said nothing when her lord came in, but coughed just one grain of cough. This, in combination with the lifting of her darkly defined eyebrows over her toothpick by the breadth of a line, suggested to her husband that he would do well to look round the shop among the customers, for any new customer who had dropped in while he stepped over the way. So when Defarge entered, Madame Defarge was like, she coughed, and she kind of looked at him, and that was a signal na, you look around in our shop, look for customers who might have come in before you exited. Or after you exited. So again, the Defarges are very secretive. They're very secretive people. The wine shopkeeper accordingly rolled his eyes about until they rested upon an elderly gentleman and a young lady who were seated in a corner. Other company were there, 2 playing cards, 2 playing dominoes, 3 standing by the counter, lengthening out a short supply of wine. As he passed behind the counter, he took notice that the elderly gentleman said in a look to the young lady, "This is our man." "What the devil do you do in that galley there?" said Monsieur Defarge to himself. "I don't know you." But he feigned not to notice the 2 strangers and fell into discourse with a triumvirate of customers who were drinking at the counter. "How goes it, Jock?" said one of these 3 to Monsieur Defarge. "Is all the spilt wine swallowed?" "Every drop, Jock," answered Monsieur Defarge. When this interchange of Christian name was effected, Madame Defarge, picking her teeth with her toothpick, coughed another grain of cough and raised her eyebrows by the breadth of another line. "It is not often," said the second of the 3, addressing Monsieur Defarge, "that many of these miserable beasts know the taste of wine or of anything but black bread and death. Is it not so, Jock?" "It is so, Jock," Monsieur Defarge returned. At this second interchange of the Christian name, Madame Defarge, still using her toothpick with profound composure, coughed another grain of cough and raised her eyebrows by the breadth of another line. The last of the three now said his say as he put down his empty drinking vessel and smacked his lips. Ah, so much the worse. A bitter taste it is that such poor cattle always have in their mouths, and hard lives they live, Jock. Am I right, Jock? You are right, Jock, was the response of Monsieur Defarge. The third interchange of the Christian name was completed at the moment when Madame Defarge put her toothpick by, kept her eyebrows up, and slightly rustled in her seat. "Holy and true," muttered her husband. "Gentlemen, my wife." The three customers pulled off their hats to Madame Defarge with three flourishes. She acknowledged their homage by bending her head and giving them a quick look. Then she glanced in a casual manner round the wine shop, took up her knitting with great apparent calmness and repose of spirit, and became absorbed in it. "Gentlemen," said her husband, who had kept his bright eye observantly upon her, "good day. The chamber, furnished bachelor fashion, that you wished to see and were inquiring for when I stepped out, is on the 5th floor. The doorway of the staircase gives on the little courtyard close to the left here," pointing with his hand near to the window of my establishment. "But now that I remember, one of you has already been there and can show the way. Gentlemen, adieu." Okay, very interesting. So there were two strangers sitting down there, an old man, an elderly man, and a young woman. So who do you think this is? This is who elderly man and young woman have we met so far in the story, okay? But Defarge didn't talk to them right away. He talked to these three guys, okay? So he talked to these three men and who are just kind of talking in the counter. And he said like, "Oh, I don't know who you are." He kind of said, "Oh, I don't know who you are." But then they start talking and they call each other Jock guys, okay? So all of them have the same name, okay? Jock, which is kind of like the French version of Jack. It's a very common name. And he's like, "Oh, Jock," and then, "Oh, Jock." And they kind of call each other Jock. And it's weird. All three of them, including Defarge, the three of them plus Defarge, their name is all Jock, or at least they all call each other Jock. So do you think their names are really all Jock? It's weird, right? It feels like it's a code word or a code name. Okay, and because they're all calling Jock, and they really say the word Jock good after every sentence. And then Madame Defarge is always just like, she kind of coughs and then looks up, coughs, looks up. And see, Defarge said, "Okay, the three Jocks, the three of you, you can go to they were kind of asking for they wanted to see something." And he said, "What you want to see, it's on the 5th floor. Go there, you can look at what you want to look at." So again, secrets, good kayo ni ang Defarge wine shop. There's something in the 5th floor that the three Jocks want to look at. They paid for their wine and left the place. The eyes of Monsieur Defarge were studying his wife with her knitting when the elderly gentleman advanced from his corner and begged the favor of a word. "Willingly, sir," said Monsieur Defarge, and quietly stepped with him to the door. Their conference was very short but very decided. Almost at the first word, Monsieur Defarge started and became deeply attentive. It had not lasted a minute when he nodded and went out. The gentleman then beckoned to the young lady, and they too went out. Madame Defarge knitted with nimble fingers and steady eyebrows and saw nothing. Mr. Jarvis, Gloria, and Miss Manette, emerging from the wine shop thus, joined Monsieur Defarge in the doorway to which he had directed his other company just before. It opened from a stinking little black courtyard and was the general public entrance to a great pile of houses inhabited by a great number of people. In the gloomy tile-paved entry to the gloomy tile-paved staircase, Monsieur Defarge bent down on one knee to the child of his old master and put her hand to his lips. It was a gentle action, but not at all gently done. A very remarkable transformation had come over him in a few seconds. He had no good humor in his face, nor any openness of aspect left, but had become a secret, angry, dangerous man. "It is very high, it is a little difficult, better to begin slowly." Thus Monsieur Defarge in a stern voice to Mr. Lorry as they began ascending the stairs. Okay, so Defarge used to be the servant of the father of Lucy. All right, so I think it was mentioned in chapter 4 where they said nga, we are going to go to an old servant of your father. He is the one keeping him now. All right? So Defarge is that servant. He used to be the servant of the father of Lucy. He's the one keeping the dad langsa for now. Okay? And then he kissed Lucy in the hand. He became very angry, even thinking about her father and what's happened to him. He seems more dangerous. And then he told Lori, we have to climb the stairs, okay? We have to climb up. Is he alone? The latter whispered. Alone. God help him. Who should be with him? Said the other in the same low voice. Is he always alone then? Yes. Of his own desire? Of his own necessity. As he was when I first saw him after they found me and demanded to know if I would take him and at my peril be discreet, as he was then, so he is now. So Lori was like, is he alone up there? And then Defarge was like, yeah, he's alone. And Lori was like, why? He wants to be alone? And then Defarge said, he needs to be alone. Shady. Okay? He is greatly changed. The keeper of the wine shop stopped to strike the wall with his hand and mutter a tremendous curse. No direct answer could have been half so forcible. Mr. Lorry's spirits grew heavier and heavier as he and his two companions ascended higher and higher. So they begin to climb the steps of the wine shop. Pause it here, guys. I want you to continue reading. So all we know is that Defarge, whenever he talks about the father of Lucy, he's very triggered by it. He kind of banged his hand on the wall. He said a curse. The situation of the father makes him very mad. Okay, so just read the next paragraph until come now, business. Okay, so they're gonna just climb the stairs here, but it's described very well, guys. The next few paragraphs are described so well. Pause the video here and then continue playing when you've read up to that's well, friend Defarge. Come now, business, and then we will continue reading. Okay, so pause. Okay, so let's continue. All right. So right now, let's go to Defarge. Right. So, very well described, no? And Murag, he was like, I think he was talking where they were talking very softly as they climbed the stairs. They went up slowly and softly. The staircase was short, and they were soon at the top. There, as it had an abrupt turn in it, they came all at once in sight of three men whose heads were bent down close together at the side of a door and who were intently looking into the room to which the door belonged, through some chinks or holes in the wall. On hearing footsteps close at hand, these three turned and rose and showed themselves to be the three of one name who had been drinking in the wine shop. So they climbed the stairs, they reached the door, and the three jocks were gathered around the door and peeking into the room. So remember when Defarge said, the thing you want to see, it's in the 5th floor. They were on the 5th floor peeking in, and then Defarge was like, okay, go. You've seen what you need to see. Go now, okay? I forget them in the surprise of your visit, explained Monsieur Defarge. Leave us, good boys. We have business here. The three glided by and went silently down. There, appearing to be no other door on that floor, and the keeper of the wine shop going straight to this one when they were left alone, Mr. Lorry came in a whisper, a little anger. Do you make a show of Monsieur Manette? I show him in the way you have seen, to it shows you. Is that well? I think it is well. Who are the few? How do you choose them? I choose them as real men of my name. Jock is my name, to whom the sight is likely to do good. Enough, you are English. That is another thing. Stay there, if you please, a little moment. So Mr. Lorry was really like, why are you showing him to other people? And Defarge is like, I only show them to men like me, men with my name, Jock, because the sight of Mr. Manette will do good for men like me. With an admonitory gesture to keep them back, he stooped and looked in through the crevice in the wall. Soon raising his head again, he struck twice or thrice upon the door, evidently with no other object than to make a noise there. With the same intention, he drew the key across it 3 or 4 times before he put it clumsily into the lock, and turned it as heavily as he could. The door slowly opened inward under his hand, and he looked into the room and said something. A faint voice answered something. Little more than a single syllable could have been spoken on either side. He looked back over his shoulder and beckoned them to enter. Mr. Lorry got his arm securely round the daughter's waist and held her, for he felt that she was sinking. A business urge with a moisture that was not of business shining on his cheek. Come in, come in. I am afraid of it, she answered, shuddering. Of it? What? I mean of him, of my father. Rendered in a death by her state and by the beckoning of their conductor, he drew over his neck the arm that shook upon his shoulder, lifted her a little, and hurried her into the room. He set her down just within the door and held her, clinging to him. Defarge drew out the key, closed the door, locked it on the inside, took out the key again, and held it in his hand. All this he did methodically, and with a loud and harsh accompaniment of noise he could make. Finally crossed the room with a measured tread to where the window was. He stopped there and faced round. So Defarge didn't just barge into the room. He would kind of jiggle the knob. He would put the key in. He would take it back out. He would be loud with the keys. So Murag, it's so weird. It's scary. Can you imagine if someone's gonna say, "Okay, your father that you thought was dead is in this next room," and then the guy is kind of like putting the key in, making noises, being shady. So Lucy is so scared. And then Mr. Lorry is like, it's okay, it's just business. But Murag, he has na kuno a moisture in his cheeks. So it's either tears or sweat. And it's very clear he's also scared. It's not just business. He's also feeling very like emotional about the situation. And courage lang gid Lucy. Be courageous. But Lucy's like, I'm scared of my father. The garret built to be a dry depository for firewood and the like was dim and dark, for the window of dormer shape was in truth a door in the roof, with a little crane over it for the hoisting up of stores from the street unglazed, and closing up the middle in 2 pieces like any other door of French construction. To exclude the cold, one half of this door was fast closed, and the other was opened but a very little way. Such a scanty portion of light was admitted through these means that it was difficult, on first coming in, to see anything, and long habit alone could have slowly formed in anyone the ability to do any work requiring nicety in such obscurity. Yet work of that kind was being done in the garret, for with his back towards the door and his face towards the window, where the keeper of the wine shop stood looking at him, a white-haired man sat on a low bench, stooping forward, and very busy making shoes. Okay, so it's very dark in the room. Okay, it's very, very dark. And it's a strange, dark, scary room, and you can kind of hear sounds. And what do they find? They find a white-haired man sitting on a low bench, stooping forward, and very busy making shoes. So they find an old shoemaker in the dark of that room. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. So we're gonna read chapter 6. So I'm gonna start another video. So again, so this won't be too long. I'd rather you have a lot of little videos, short videos, kaisa it's one long video. But then we will continue. All right. So before we do that, the 3 jocks, they were the ones gathering around the door. Chapter 6, we are in the shoemaker now. Okay.